My hubby actually does it. He is able to perform every voice. After decades of silence, 85-year-old Andrew Parker Bowles has now spoken, and what he has disclosed is absolutely astounding. The reality of his well-publicized divorce from Queen Camilla has been hidden for years under royal headlines, hushed rumors, and cautiously worded remarks. However, the man who was once at the center of the most publicized love triangle in Britain is finally speaking up. What made him leave Camilla? How did their royal romance end? The response can take you by surprise and alter your entire worldview. A concealed marriage. The future of every marriage is defined by certain occasions, times when love either grows stronger or starts to wane. Andrew Parker Bowles experienced those times in silence, with glances and small changes in his wife's heart. He and Camilla seemed like a picture-perfect couple on the surface. Refined, aristocratic, and at ease among the upper echelons of society. However, something invisible had taken root behind that flawless exterior. There was always something, or rather, someone hovering in the background. Prince Charles was that someone. It was said that Camilla's love affair with Charles ended before she wed Andrew, but the reality was far more nuanced. The emotional bond between them never really diminished, even though their physical relationship may have ended, at least temporarily. Charles had made an impression on Camilla's soul. He had not only been a fleeting passion. Despite his tendency to keep his feelings to himself, Andrew started to experience them in the most subtle yet agonizing ways. He saw it in the way her face would shift whenever Charles' name was spoken. He felt it in the discreet phone conversations that always appeared to take place behind closed doors and in the letters she cautiously stashed away. Camilla appeared aloof at times, even during social gatherings and family meals, as though some of her love and attention were elsewhere. As his wife's heart gradually swung in a different way, Andrew started to feel like a visitor in his marriage, playing the part of the obedient husband. This has nothing to do with envy in the traditional sense. Throughout his life, Andrew had been surrounded by social discretion, aristocratic affairs, and flirtations. The strength of Camilla's relationship with Charles, however, was what set this apart. It was persistent and more than simply emotional. It was nearly spiritual. Charles was always there, regardless of the years that went by or the stage of life they were in. Even though he wasn't there in the room, his shadow was always there. Andrew recently told a close friend that he frequently felt like a stand-in, someone who was there not because he was Camilla's true love, but rather because he made sense, fit the calendar, and gave things structure. But in her heart and mind, he wasn't the first person she looked to for emotional support. Although he possessed the title, duties, and public persona of a spouse, he lacked the closeness that gave that position significance. That emotional absence eventually became too much to bear. One day by day, it eroded the foundation of their marriage. Andrew witnessed a bond eroding behind closed doors, while the world witnessed a sophisticated marriage having children and attending royal events. He was not consumed by fury. It was sorrow and an increasing awareness that his wife's heart had never truly belonged in the first place. And there was the real grief more than any scandal or affair. Andrew felt love slipping through his fingers in silence while the rest of the world witnessed a loving husband. We have to go back to the starting point in order to comprehend how it all came to be. The flawless start and the unseen flaw. This section of the narrative transports us to the early years of Andrew Parker Bowles and Camilla Shand, when everything appeared to be ideal. They appeared to onlookers to be the perfect golden pair, straight out of a fairy tale. Both were from well-established, well-respected aristocratic families in British high society. They were the envy of their contemporaries because of their easy grace, charm, and elegance. With his tough appearance and polo prowess, Andrew was seen as the ideal gentleman, strong, self-assured, and subtly endearing. Camilla, who moved elegantly through the affluent social circles to which they both belonged, was equally renowned for her brilliant smile and inherent composure. They appeared to represent the ideal fusion of youth, tradition, and status. They lived in a world of expensive polo matches played in the sun, where people cheered and admired Andrew's prowess on the field. They mixed with diplomats, monarchs, and the elite of London society at formal dinners in the evenings. It was a life of glistening crystal glasses, hushed chats behind lace curtains, and laughter resonating through opulent ballrooms. Anyone observing would have thought that Andrew and Camilla's relationship was a brilliant illustration of love and cooperation. The couple had it all: beauty, prestige, and a bright future ahead of them. Together, their names were uttered in awe, and their tale was narrated as one of those uncommon love stories that appeared destined to last forever. However, fissures were already starting to appear behind this glistening exterior. Something more complex was developing behind the well-groomed grins and social graces, a subtle, unseen tension that nobody cared to admit. At first, those fissures were not noticeable. When you looked closely, it was impossible to ignore them. They were like small shadows moving slowly across a bright room. There were times of uncertainty and separation behind the glitz and joy, when their shared grins dwindled and their warmth faded. It was obvious to those who knew them well. Even though no one was prepared to call it that, an emotional triangle was beginning to form. This was the start of a tale that was much more complicated than the fairy tale it seemed to be. Loyalty, ambition, and desire, and hearts torn between duty and desire all played a part in this tale of love. The glitzy exterior of Andrew and Camilla's early years concealed a more profound reality that would eventually shatter their idyllic environment and permanently alter their course in life. This section challenges us to see past the glitzy pictures and realize that even the most perfect beginnings can conceal the seeds of treachery, heartache, and a fate from which none of them could ever escape. The early years of Andrew and Camilla's romance seemed like a dream. Their fairy tale barely lasted long enough to conceal the turmoil that was subtly developing behind its idyllic exterior. Let's now examine Camilla's gradual transformation away from Andrew Parker Bowles. The unspoken goals, the unspoken. At this point in Andrew Parker Bowles' novel, everything shifts and the subdued unease of a failed marriage becomes something much more sinister. Up until recently, it had appeared that his relationship with Camilla had broken down due to feeling specifically a growing emotional distance, a lack of intimacy, and a lingering love for Prince Charles. However, Andrew noticed something far more profound and intentional at work as he started to listen more intently. The woman he had known was gradually changing. She was clever, lively, and openly doubtful of the royal realm. When she was younger, Camilla had always ridiculed the formalities and stiffness of royal life. She never seemed to want to be in the spotlight, rolled her eyes at customs, and scoffed about the rules. She was refreshing and even charming because of this. But as time went on, Andrew noticed a change in her. Camilla had stopped making fun of the monarchy. She wasn't just studying it for fun. She was watching, picking things up, and adjusting. Andrew remembers discovering newspaper clippings, handwritten notes about royal events, and lists of royal circle members who might come in handy in the future. She seemed to have become a student of the royal world rather than merely a passive observer. And finally, a resolute player inside of it. He saw her change not just physically, but also emotionally and cognitively. The woman who used to mock formal dinners started making plans for her attire and talking to potential guests. She began forming covert alliances with lawmakers, former staffers, press advisors, and others with ties to the palace. At first, Andrew didn't really understand what was going on, but she started showing up at parties not just as a guest, but also as someone who knew how to command the appropriate kind of attention. He reasoned that it might be a phase or a response to Charles's increasing influence in their life once more. But gradually he realized the reality. Camilla's feelings for Charles weren't merely a passing fancy. Together, she and he were creating a future that would involve the monarchy, the public, and the royal court. And that picture no longer included Andrew. He realized that he wasn't where she was going to end up. He served as a springboard. Their home, their lives, and even their kids were being written as supporting characters in a much larger narrative that Camilla was creating for herself. She still loved Charles, but it wasn't the only thing. It was that she was discreetly getting ready to walk with him, not as a covert lover, but as someone who the monarchy itself might accept, even embrace. It became impossible for Andrew to ignore the truth. He was no longer Camilla's real-life companion. However, was this agonizing alteration only influenced by subtle adjustments and increasing emotional detachment? Or did Camilla ultimately utter the words that crushed his final dreams? Let's investigate. the instant that broke everything. This is a heart-stopping moment in Andrew Parker Bowles' journey. It's where his experience's actual emotional impact finally sinks in. He was stung by more than simply betrayal. There was more to it than Camilla's protracted liaison with Prince Charles. It was far more than that. At this point, everything he believed to be true about his marriage fell apart. Andrew claimed that neither the rumors in royal circles nor the headlines revealed the most agonizing truth. In a moment of unadulterated honesty that left him speechless, Camilla said it directly. She informed him that he would never be her forever, and she did so with confidence, coldness, and no apologies. That her ultimate objective was not their marriage, their house, their kids, or the years they spent together. He merely served as a link between the life she had and the life she desired, a chapter in her story. His heart wasn't the only thing broken by that realization. It caused him to doubt everything. Had the foundation of their relationship been a lie? Was he just a stand-in, someone who was suitable for the position at the time? Andrew had long thought that Camilla and Charles shared a deeper emotional connection than friendship, but she was always going to be replaced when the throne came knocking. He never thought that his entire marriage might have been a part of a covert, long-term plan, despite the fact that they had an unmistakable, strong, and even magnetic connection. He was deeply troubled by the notion that Andrew was only a stepping stone to Camilla's ultimate ambition, which had always been to consider Charles as her final game. With fresh eyes, he started to relive their life together, including their wedding vows, family vacations, and intimate talks. He recalled Camilla's constant dissatisfaction with their position in the world. She ignored royal procedure in public but studied it carefully behind closed doors. She performed the roles of mother and wife, but she kept a part of herself hidden, as though she was waiting for someone or something. Even the most perceptive person can become blinded by love, loyalty, and optimism, but in retrospect, the indicators had always been there. Andrew had trusted their tale. He had had faith in her. More upsetting than any affair was hearing her confess without regret that he was never the one. It was more than a simple denial of love. All of their shared history was rejected. He wasn't the only man she had left for. She had covered it up with their life together, a way to approach the throne. And Andrew lost more than just his wife in that crucial time. The narrative he had been telling himself for decades, that they were a collaboration, a team, two individuals navigating the world together, was destroyed. Rather, long before she ever stated it aloud, he understood that he had been walking alone the entire time on a path she had outgrown. Losing his wife wasn't the only thing that broke Andrew's heart. Losing the life was the issue, the stories and memories they had created together. However, their children were in the midst of that emotional devastation. What happened to them? How did they handle the silent dissolution of their family? Let's investigate. Between two worlds, although Queen Camilla is frequently at the center of royal news and headlines, her two children, Laura Lopes and Tom Parker Bowles, from her first marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles, have had quietly intriguing lives of their own. They occasionally enter the royal spotlight, but for the most part, they stay grounded and lead relatable, everyday lives away from the spotlight. Despite being raised in an environment of royalty and nobility, Tom and Laura have both forged distinctive careers distinguished by their inventiveness, composed self-assurance, and subtly significant ties to the throne. The eldest brother, Tom, was born on December 18, 1974. King Charles, his godfather, is also his stepfather, making his family story unique in British history. Although his background has a unique twist due to this uncommon family tie, Tom has never depended on royal prominence. He has instead established himself in the very different industry of food. Tom is a well-known cookbook author, critic, and culinary writer. He has established himself as a well-known voice in magazines like Esquire UK and the Mail on Sunday over the years, and his restaurant evaluations are renowned for being frank and considerate. He has also served as a judge and guest expert on a number of food TV shows, adding not just his expertise, but also a dash of aristocratic flair to the kitchen. Tom most recently released Cooking and the Crown, a book that masterfully blends his love of cooking with his royal connections. Royal recipes passed down from King Charles to Queen Victoria. He expressed his sincere gratitude to my mother, the king, and the queen at the book's premiere, stating that their encouragement and wisdom were crucial to making the initiative a reality. Tom's personal life began in 2005 when he wed fashion editor Sarah Baez. They have 2 kids together. Freddie was born in 2010 and Lola was born in 2007. Tom is still a loving father, even though he and Sarah eventually split up. Notably, Freddie participated in royal history by acting as a page of honor at the coronation of his grandmother, Camilla. Born on January 1, 1978, Laura Lopes has opted for a more subdued lifestyle. She entered the art industry by managing London's Space Gallery before co-founding Eleven. She received her education at a Catholic boarding school and then at Oxford Brookes University, a gallery of great art in the posh Belgravia district. She wed Harry Lopes in 2006. He is the CEO of Eden Renewables and a former model who is now an accountant. With Gus and Louis acting as pages alongside their cousin Freddie, the couple's 3 children, Eliza and twins Gus and Louis, all participated in the coronation. Tom and Laura have paved their own ways, establishing jobs, starting families, and leaving personal legacies while being associated with monarchy. Let's now explore Andrew's silent exit from a life that was never truly his. The quiet exit following the emotional devastation of his marriage to Camilla, Andrew Parker Bowles had to make a decision that may have had a profound impact on the royal family as well as on himself. He was justified in his outburst. He had lost his wife to the future monarch, Prince Charles. The betrayal was extremely humiliating, public, and personal. Any other man may have used his suffering to settle scores by speaking to the media, writing a book, or becoming a regular presence in the news. However, Andrew made a different decision that few others in his situation would have been able to carry out. Silence was his choice. He didn't make sour remarks or host press conferences. He didn't appear on talk shows or release private correspondence. Rather, he subtly vanished from the royal drama that was taking place all around him. As Camilla steadily rose to prominence, first as Charles' friend, then as his wife, and ultimately as Queen, Andrew vanished from view, carrying with him all the truth, suffering, and secrets he could have used against him. This section of his biography highlights the force and rarity of dignity. In addition to abandoning the marriage, Andrew also abandoned the chance to gain notoriety. He was privy to one of the most contentious royal affairs in contemporary history, but he never exploited it for personal gain or retaliation. He realized that nothing he said could be heard more clearly than anything he said. The people started to forget his part in the story as the years went by. Slowly, Camilla was recast into the royal story as a key player in Charles' fate rather than as the other woman. Andrew, meanwhile, started to resemble a ghost. Documentaries didn't mention him. Articles regarding the royal romance hardly ever mentioned him by name. He appeared to have been completely absent from the scene, and it's possible that the pain of that erasure was equal to that of the divorce. Andrew had been Camilla's boyfriend for many years, the father of her children, and the guy who supported her during significant family events and royal entanglements. But people who opt for quiet exits are rarely fortunate in history. He took on the role of the man in the background, a mute observer of a love triangle that influenced the monarchy but was never included in the story's recounting. Andrew, however, never faltered. He continued to uphold a personal code of integrity, self-control, and dignity. By doing this, he maintained his honor even as others changed the story. Despite being forced out of the spotlight, he refused to allow the world to pull him into the ensuing pandemonium. And Andrew Parker Bowles' choice to leave quietly may be the most potent statement of all in a time when every slight turns into a scandal. A legacy more powerful than any protest was created by Andrew's quiet. Dignity in the face of treachery was his silent retreat. Let's now discover how Andrew's bravery altered our preconceived notions. Outside the walls of the palace, all of our preconceived notions about the notorious royal love triangle are completely upended in this last and most impactful section of Andrew Parker Bowles' tale. For many years, the story of Prince Charles, Camilla, and Andrew was presented as a straightforward tale of heartbreak and forbidden love gone wrong. However, the events are illuminated by Andrew's long-held revelations in a considerably more nuanced and eerie way. It was more than just love. It has to do with something far more significant: control, ambition, and power, and the agonizing price of being included in a story that wasn't yours in the first place. We begin to comprehend the deeper levels that were concealed beneath the surface through Andrew's sight. His account compels us to reconsider not only what transpired, but also why it occurred and who was impacted. Instead, then, speaking as a resentful ex-husband, he portrays a man who silently observed his identity and life being altered by circumstances outside of his control. Ultimately, this was more than just a tale of two lovers and one abandoned. It told the story of Camilla, a woman who changed who she was to survive in the world of monarchy, and who learned how to negotiate a world of influence, power, and image. Additionally, it was about a man named Andrew who gradually vanished from the narrative after losing his wife. He didn't have a loud or dramatic pain. Not just in a relationship, but in history itself, it was the gradual, silent loss of identity. While his role was obscured or reduced to a footnote, Andrew spent years watching the story of Camilla and Charles play out on magazine covers, in documentaries, and in official royal documents. But now that these long-kept secrets have been revealed, he takes back his position, not to change the past, but to fill in the blanks. Andrew offers more than just his own thoughts. It serves as a gift to history and a warning that the most human aspects of stories, the suffering, the sacrifice, and the silence, are frequently omitted from them, particularly the glitzy, polished tales that originate in palaces. His voice originates from the silent shadows cast by the press box and the throne room, not from either location. And sometimes the true tale away from the spotlight is there, but right outside it, where others who are waiting, hurting, and healing are behind the curtain. Even though Andrew Parker Bowles was excluded from the public version of the royal fairy tale, his last remarks reveal a deeper reality. Every crown has a price, and every happily ever after has a person who paid for it with their love, silence, and occasionally even their sense of self. What are your thoughts on Andrew disclosing the reasons behind his divorce from Camilla? Please share your ideas in the comments section below. Remember to subscribe and like.